We're live, and yes, it is the film review Seattle Overload, where we're going to unfortunately delve back into the 49ers tape. Although the good thing about tape, Griffin, is that it can provide you with moments of clarity and sort of optimism, and you sort of realize, yeah, it looked bad in the broadcast, but on the glorious All 22, things weren't quite as bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels like that's how it goes a lot, doesn't it? I feel like we've said that about a lot of losses over the years, or at least maybe like bad defensive performances. In the reaction pod, I likened it to the Vikings game. Um, and the Vikings game was a game where, they were just making mistakes left and right and everything. And after getting through the tape on this one, it felt less like they were making assignment errors than it was just kind of some guys just weren't playing that well that have historically played well. And then the other part of it was just like them collectively not playing cohesively together. Like when everybody's just slightly off, but all at the same time, it adds up to an explosive play, right? Like a should have been a 4-yard run turning into a 12-yard run, or it should have been a 2-yard tackle for loss turning into a 50-yarder, right? Things like that. It's clear that they're making some. There's an adjustment period that is going on with the overall minor changes that's going on defensively. But so that's still an adjustment period that we're going to see them struggle through. But if this is their Vikings game, if this is as bad as it gets as far as it relates to the things that are within their control, then I'm pretty optimistic about their ability to bounce back and what their peak ability can be moving forward and stuff. The other kind of big picture part of this, and I don't know if this actually is affecting them in an explicit way as much as you might think, but they're only playing with the fifth, 20%, 1 out of 5 of the starting secondary that they had last year when they were at their best right now. And like we'll unpack and get to the individual play of some of their players, but that matters in terms of having continuity with everybody, especially things that are more like rule oriented and less kind of like one-on-one play oriented, So that's another variable at play too. But yeah, it really wasn't quite as bad as it looked on broadcast. And I thought I was just going to be like one of those games where, like you tweeted, to burn the tape, don't ever think about it again, which is how I felt about that Vikings game. And maybe that Cardinals game too, that first Cardinals game. So I don't know. Well, what was your general impression?
Yeah, similar stuff. As I said, optimistic. And I guess starting with the defense, that optimism continues into just looking at the raw data. As we said yesterday, me and Ty, the run defense, if you take out, and you can't do this with football. And football, it's always fun to play the ifs, buts, and maybes kind of deal. But the run defense, if you take out that 51-yard Deebo Samuel carry, like it's 3.1 yards per carry average, or 3.3, whatever it is under 4. Is on the lower spectrum of the threes. It's pretty good, and that should have been a tackle for loss. And then you look at the run defense tape, Griff, and there's things that they did really badly in the first half that they kind of go and correct. My big takeaway was, wow, these defensive linemen are like not doing a good job, particularly at shaded nose tackle with them running a lot of underfronts. Shaded nose tackle running underfronts, like they were like throwing a guy into the center's lap.
Yeah.
Into the linebacker's lap, sorry. They weren't keeping the center off the linebacker. And credit to the 49ers for stopping them climbing as well.
Right. So they're playing this 4-2-5 nickel front, right? Like they're not playing a whole lot of like 3-4. And Clint Hurt talked about how, you can have 3 down linemen or 4 down linemen, but you're usually playing an underfront structure or whatever, right? But I mean, like even within that, they're playing like true 4-2-5 stuff where like they're presenting a hard A gap bubble, hard B gap bubble. Even if they're playing their underfront structure out of their 3-4 personnel, they're still playing heavier. They still have different body types out there than when it's 4-2-5. So like Puna Ford, in my opinion, is a really good run defender. But when he's tasked with the bubble and he's playing like a 2-eye or even a 3, and he doesn't, and you can't get the assurance that he's getting a one-on-one. Like, he's just straight up losing the blocks. He's getting scooped. He's getting moved down. He's getting comboed down the field. And the linebackers don't have a chance of scraping over the top of that. And that's when San Francisco is playing like heavy on the tackles. When they're not playing heavy and they're playing more like faster flow, like a full flow zone principles, where the front side guard isn't blocking back at all, isn't helping at all, and or the front side tackle or the front side center, and he's just free releasing, then a linebacker, especially with two safeties deep, and the linebackers or alignments are trying to cheat, having to play kind of two gaps sort of, they can't get into that gap. So it's impossible with free release. So that means the defensive tackle has to replace that offensive lineman who's left. And you got to make the play then. So when we see like free runners getting up on the linebackers, it's the scheme's kind of inviting that. So then the defensive tackles have to make the play. But Puna Ford was getting moved. If it wasn't Ford, it was Brian Mona. If it wasn't Mona, it was Jefferson. I mean, these guys were getting tossed in a lot of these drives. Really, the only guy who was consistently doing his job really was Al Woods. And this scheme falls apart if they can't get the gap control up front from it. So
even Woods, like there's one play where he missed the center. This is this 4-2 look you're describing, and one thing that the 49ers did pretty damn good was, okay, Seattle wants Woods at the 2-eye, right? And they want Puna at the 3-tech. But then if this tight end goes across here, Seattle will reset the strength of their front, and they'll put this 2-eye into a 3-tech because they want to play over and nickel in those even fronts Griffin's talking about. And they want to play the 3-tech in the 2-eye. So rather than have them switch sides, they just slot over, right? So then that puts Puna in the 2-eye. And playing a 2-eye is a lot harder. It's what Griffin was speaking about last week on this show. Like, playing a 2-eye and you have to play heavier. It's not like playing a 1-tech where you just play down on the center. A 2-eye, if it's run towards you, which is what the 49ers were doing, you're really getting moved by the guard. You're trying to knock back the guard, and the A gap can get really wide as the center comes towards you too. And so Puna was kind of getting washed, even when Pirate stunting as well, which would just be like this. Puna's getting like washed down the field on those kind of Pirate stunts as well. So that was concerning. And if I draw up the kind of underfront that Seattle was running, the big thing I found was like they're trying to play under, right? And they're trying to play like cover 3 to it so they can play turn back, run through, turn back. But the 1-tech is is like going on the guard, and so the angle of like Brooks in the middle of the defense, he's getting cut off, and then everyone's getting washed down, and then it cuts back off Brooks, where Brooks should be the guy who fills in, but he can't because the center's thrown into his lap. If it was the guard into his lap, then he's a bit more backside, and then the cutback lane's not there.
Right. And man, what's frustrating about this is that if they were actually playing more bare or more tight, more 3-4 odd space structure like they did last year against the Niners. And again, they did play some this game, but when they played it last year against the Niners, I mean, their defensive linemen were winning blocks. It's pretty similar personnel on both sides of the ball. The Seattle's DL was winning blocks, and they weren't getting all this particular issues they were getting this game. When you present 4 down to Kyle Shanahan, his eyes get all googly eyed because you're giving him bubbles, which is just meaning a bubble on a defensive line is where it's a gap that doesn't have a defensive lineman aligned in the gap, right? So he's just attacking that with 2 back and then motion, making it difficult for the linebackers to know exactly which gap they have, putting everyone out of leverage. And it's feeding right into his hands, into Shanahan's hands. So usually the way these matchups go is that Seattle and San Francisco typically look fairly well matched up, especially on both sides of the ball. But like, especially Seattle's defense against their offense, both teams execute really well. Like, they give each other a really hard time. And this is a game where like San Francisco is giving Seattle the harder time, especially the first 2 quarters. But also they were putting themselves at a schematic disadvantage. And so
like here, if we just look at this, we have the one tech nose tackle, right? But the center was doing a good job of double teaming him with this guard, and then the one tech was going out here, right? So this guard is on the thingy, and this guy is coming up here. And as the linebackers flow across with the fullback, who then winds back, which was a big thing they did, this center is able to get to this linebacker, and then it just cuts back off this as these guys all get moved down, which was a problem they had. And then if we look at the Bear, you mentioned about if they'd run more tight. Well, what actually stopped the run in the second half schematically, other than guys doing their jobs better, right?
Right.
Other than guys doing their jobs better, it was running bare fronts, and it was doing a strong bare front, which is very like under. As I embarrass myself here, but it was running the bare front and then pirating to it, which I'll draw up in a second. But and calling pirate to the strong side, and then it keeps the linebackers clean. They're clean to flow, but it also stops them climbing, because you can't climb if there's movement coming towards you as a center.
Right. So that begs the question: why are they playing so much 4 down in this game? Aside from like that's what they want to be able to do this year in general more. Well, because the San Francisco, their tendency in gun is so balanced. They run so much, but then they also play action and they drop back out of it. So you've got 3 possibilities that could happen at any one point. They want to be ready to be able to get their edges upfield when they do keep pass. So they want to be able to stay in an even front so that they can essentially be a pass first team, a pass first defense. Good in theory, but when you're getting gashed like you are, it really doesn't hold up. But then, so like that's the theory, but then we would see then even against 4 down against under center when they would go under center. And then occasionally we'd see bare or odd or tight against gun. So, but again, that was just because they were really trying to nail down and get their shit together in the second half. And again, like you said, it worked, but it's like, okay, now why are you guys playing 4-2-5 when they're in under center now? Like, well, why is that happening? So, but Matty, you had a thought, because maybe it was just they wanted to play nickel for when they did get past and they didn't have nickel bare or nickel tight installed for that week. Or
I don't know why that would have been, though, because I don't know why my light is going off. That's not great, but
it's a sign.
It's a sign. It's an ominous sign. I will sort that out in a second. Yeah. I think, part of this is they were preparing for Trey Lance. They came out in the first drive. They ran a 6-2 reduced over front, but with Cody Barton off the field. So it was technically 4-3 personnel. Like there was 4 defensive tackles on the field, 2 outside linebackers, edge rushers, and then Jordan Brooks in there. It was more like a 6-1 actually. And then obviously Lance goes, we only see it on the first 2 plays of the game, right? So that was slightly unusual. So then, the whole nickel deal, though, I don't know why they didn't have a nickel there. But then at the same time, when they played nickel and actually the defense tackles were playing better, and Poona Ford did have a difficult time of it. But then they play nickel and they play weak rotated cover 3, right? Cover 9. And they're able to play lever, spill, lever, like classic kind of over. And they pirated out of the nickel as well. 3 tech in the end going over. That they actually fitted the run a bit better. I don't know why this isn't working, but well. Hopefully it sorts itself out. Maybe it's quite hot in here. That could be part of the problem. But yeah, so it was just like, I think Clint Hurt described it as a horror show in the first half. I agree. And largely in the second half, until they broke just through, I think, fatigue, they kind of shut down everything San Francisco was doing. This is this bare or tight front with the strong pirate, because the tight end's over here. And these 2 guys caused havoc up here, keeping these linebackers clean to flow off the fullback. It really did was a nice adjustment. So they've got like tools in their locker. And Pete Carroll mentioned afterwards there was like schematic things. That's just going to keep happening. There were schematic things they could have done better. Well, in that instance, like, I don't know, like, I think it was just referring to the games up front, the tools, which was lacking.
Yeah. So here, for as much as we talked about, the the scheme, and then or like the front they chose to play in, and then the individual play of like Mona and Puna and everything. In spite of all that, as much as we nitpick that, if Darrell Taylor makes 2 tackles, then it's the whole overall framing is way different. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Now, did you want to talk more about the scheming there, or did you have another thought there?
No. I think you've done well there. I think, yeah, it's just frustrating, but I don't think it will happen again. And I think the final point to make on that is tendencies are very like not existing at the moment, which is partly to Seattle's benefit, like in the red zone, which Carroll acknowledged himself, right? But then also, like later in the season, when they have a bit more tendencies, they'll be able to game plan a bit better on defense for the 49ers. Like, this won't happen at home to the 49ers.
Right. So let's talk third downs, because what are they doing on third down? What are they leaning all the way into? They're a cover 1 team on third down right now. So which is pretty cool, and they're a cover 1 team with their 5th round rookie playing corner, Michael Jackson playing left corner, and Kobe Bryant playing nickel when you don't have Coleman on the bench, who's even able to get snaps at the moment because of an injury, and Josh Jones.
Yeah, which is cool because they have like actual coverage faith and coverage talent, and I feel like they're mixing it up enough, like coverage wise, that the one-on-one's not like obviously there, so teams haven't yet figured out how to pick on them in that sense.
Right.
Now I think Tariq Woolen would actually survive in those kind of pick on situations. He'd definitely hold his own. Jackson, I don't know. I'm surprised that I didn't see as much cover 1. I thought it was all like cover 3. Like
it might have been some
matching.
Yeah, some of it was Ripley's. Single high though, and they're playing tight coverage. They don't feel like they have to blitz a whole lot or pressure, or like green dog or red, or blitz, man pressure a whole lot. They're just essentially trusting their talent, and on tape they're holding up pretty well. San Francisco's numbers, they were 45%, whatever on third downs, but then that's including penalties, right?
Right.
So you take out those penalties. I mean, they look really good on third down, and I think that demonstrates the overall health of the team, or the overall like ability of their secondary to actually cover guys. Where they got their yards, San Francisco, where they got their yards in the passing game otherwise was like communication stuff, right?
Yeah, I can draw up that coverage
issue.
bust.
Yeah, go for it. It was the fire zone, right, with Brooks and Barton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, like how the way to view it is Brooks should have known that his responsibility had changed. Like when it's loud in Seattle Stadium, Barton won't be able to communicate with him. At the same time, would it have helped for Barton to say, "Hey, we're going to have to change how we're playing our fire zone here," or like you're be aware that I'm pushing with this, so you need to cover this. Yeah, 100%, and I don't think he did. Also, it's a hard assignment for Brooks, Griff, in that he has an A gap, but also a tight end corner route.
Right. And I think that's just a bad call to be in for that concept. Even if he was aware of it, an alert to it, I don't. And then you also had play action, right? You had backfield mesh between the quarterback and the running back, along with that A gap. It's just not ideal spacing. Like even when Bobby Wagner pushes on, I mean, he has a highlight reel of pushing on out routes when he's a linebacker, and as the near hook defender, it's like, yeah, he's usually in a B gap or a C gap, and he's barely making it out there, right, on a lot of those. So Brooks is not only in an A gap, he has play action, and then also he doesn't have an additional defender to leverage to because it's a fire zone. You have 3 underneath defenders instead of 4. It's just a bad call to be in, and it's kind of wrong place, wrong time, I think, for Clint Hurt to call that. But
Yeah. So this is what plays out. You can see we have a cornerback out here who I haven't drawn, Tariq Woolen. He's the way they play it, tight third. You might hear it called, but he gets run off by the post. Cody Barton is the seam curl flat player, which they call it in this new defense. So he's tasked with holding off the seam, so basically matching this guy deep, and then playing to the curl and then to the flat. How that also you might hear called a hot to 2 player. We number receivers 1, 2, right? And he's playing hot to 2, basically matching this 2 guy out and deep. However, because of this motion of Deebo Samuel, it's like what we'd call a fast 3. So 1, 2, 3, right? And so Cody's like, I'm going to push with this, which is correct because it's a beta, right? So he pushes with this. So he leaves this 2 guy. So Jordan Brooks, who's the hot to 3 player, which is this guy's the 3, right? He's the third receiver coming across. He now has a new number 3 because Cody has taken the new number 2, okay? So then Brooks pushes over, except he didn't. He just dropped in the middle hook because, as my light dies again, there's an A-gap run fit up in here. He gets play action, which, he doesn't bite on it, but his eyes are there. And then by this point, this tight end, which he's seen kind of bending up here, he runs like a sail route out and there's no one there for it, which sucks.
so now Seattle didn't do it this way, but the other way to defend this, and Seattle did this last year sometimes, is where you have Cody sail underneath that too, or maybe even match it. But I think kind of sail and play top down, and then Brooks would take the jet through to the flat. But that is still tough on him because he's also got the backfield action, right? So even if he's holding for that his run fit responsibility, he's still probably out leveraged to the flat. And there's no guarantee that Cody would have effectively gotten under that corner out route either. So, but in this case, like you said, it was Brooks not being cognizant of exactly what he needed to do. Would have at least given him a chance.
Yeah, so it sucks. These things kind of happen, I guess. But and then the other big play is the Deebo Samuel jet sweep, well, not jet sweep, sorry. The Deebo Samuel sweep off like bash or counter bash, I don't know what we call that. Where Darrell Taylor, he has a tackle for loss, he just misses his tackle. So what we're talking about there is, and Deebo is special, right? What we're talking about there is 2 plays for 89 yards and a touchdown. Plus, Deebo got them down into the red zone. I think they got a stop on that drive. I think that was the series that Trey Lance got hurt. But that matters, right? Like that really, really matters.
Yeah. Now, before we descend too deep into no, we're not being negative here, but some guys had good games this game. Uchenna Nwosu, I mean, what a free agent signing. I mean, he's a ball player. He makes plays in the run. He makes plays against the pass as a pass rusher. He had some really good, just pure rushes. He makes plays like on the boot contain, front side and back side. It's like in the run game. I mean, he's just doing all sorts of things. They ended up putting him to the field because they wanted him playing the boot over Taylor because they probably trusted his tackling. Like in the second half, that was a little adjustment they made. I think they were more going left-right and not necessarily aligning him to the field, but because quarterbacks boot to their right so they can throw easier more often, right? So they were just making sure Nwosu was on the left a little bit. So
they also dropped him a bit more in coverage, like occasionally, which part of that's wanting Taylor to be the rusher, but also Nwosu is like really reliable in that kind of area.
Right. The other side of it is especially in the fourth quarter, I believe, when I talked about continuity, like between nickel and like nickel in the corners and like zone responsibilities, that got better too in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, that's just, they're going to have to take their lumps with that because you need the reps. And this kind of, I mean, I don't think they fully anticipated Sidney Jones getting hurt, Artie Burns, pulling his groin, like in August. But so like Kobe Bryant, when they decided to move on for Mugo Amadi, and I don't know exactly how that went down, but he probably wasn't getting the reps, and that's because they're playing so much rip blitz that they're playing more cover one. He can't hold up in that, but he was a terrific, nickel zone defender in their especially their two high stuff, and they're giving up completions that they simply didn't give up last year in that stuff. So, but Kobe Bryant had a couple of good reps in the fourth quarter, especially with Tariq Woolen, especially with a guy that has no continuity, whereas Mike Jack has a little bit, right? So it's just that's part of why they only gave up 7 points in the second half. So it was just kind of a story of them getting their stuff together. And then I thought Cody Bryant played really well in the first half, and then even better in the second half. Cody Barton, sorry. For all the stuff that Shanahan was throwing at guys with like the different keys and stuff, you've got pullers going front side, a jet going backside, then you've got the read element especially with Trey to start. I mean, Cody just consistently found himself in the right place, and like fitting his gap. And even if he wasn't making the play, him fitting his gap affects the running back read, which allows someone else to make the play, right?
He
So I
was
mean, he's
really
just
aggressive downhill, like in a good sense, and he was like running over offensive linemen to get to the ball. Very violent, really good display.
And there is I think in the third quarter there was a bubble run where he knew that it was going to be another potential free release, and behind an even front, I think it was either a B gap bubble or a C gap bubble, I don't remember. But he just knew it was going to be a 320 pounder with the free release right on him. And he's already out leveraged pre-snap. Like his alignment out leverages him. And he ends up beating the blocker to the punch. It's like him adapting. He's like, okay, I need to be the one to make the difference here. And that's Cody Barton being able to overcome a deficiency in front of him. So it's good to have that at the second level. And Brooks cleaned up his play against the run of the second half. He realized he had to backdoor some stuff if he was going to do anything. There was one play where he made like a tackle at the line of scrimmage that was really nasty. And he backdoored the block, but he did it like in a safe way, if that makes sense, like kind of making a judgment call, because they don't want you backdooring. That's the other issue is it looks like linebackers are getting blocked all over the place on broadcast sometimes, but the only alternative is to go underneath the block. And the way the angles are, it's like you'll get chewed out in the film room if you do that too often. So sometimes you kind of have to get yourself blocked just so that your alignment is in the right spot, so that the other defenders don't get misaligned trying to correct you being in the wrong spot. So, and it comes back to the defensive lineman having to replace, like that's a football term where like you're replacing the guard or the tackler or the center that leaves you, so that you would then have to make the play. Anyway,
yeah. So overall, again, like it was a fairly simple kind of game plan. Like they didn't have that much that they did, but then it would have worked. But the execution in the first half was poor. The cornerback group you mentioned about linebackers. The cornerback group was pretty solid, as evidenced as we talked about how they were running some cover one stuff, but or at least leaving them on islands a lot, mainly I think for run fitting purposes, but also in passing down situations. Like, how did you evaluate the cornerback group?
I think Tariq Woolen can cover really well. I was a little disappointed he didn't contest that drift route off play action better. I really wanted to see if he could play that one. And then there was that other one where on that one of the third downs they did give up without a penalty, on that outbreaker from a reduced split. And I think he just didn't read the break right because of the way they were in a stack and everything, and he was just kind of playing it safe.
But then he almost recovered on that,
Yeah, he did. But like some of the deeper stuff, I thought he was playing it really well. He's providing what the scheme asks of the perimeter corner. So like Like he's not giving up the deep ball, and he is really competitive on breaking stuff. So that's a good sign. I thought Michael Jackson played really well on those underthrown fade balls. Like they weren't open, but he was still getting flagged for it. That's really frustrating that they're rewarding just straight up bad quarterback play. But what are you seeing though?
Yeah,
And from Kobe.
same stuff. Kobe is just like he's raw in that he doesn't he's adapting, I think, to the NFL speed and like how fast NFL guys are compared. Like, and he was covering like Alabama's fastest dude, so it's not like he's not used to it. But the NFL way of attacking guys, playing in the slot where there's a two-way go more often than he did in college. You know, it's all just tough. There's a lot going on for him. I think it will just slow down eventually. Well, that's the hope, right? But this is all good learning moments for him. And then, yeah, Tariq Woolen's special. Like, he's very up and down in that there's patchy moments too, from, again, his lack of exposure and experience. But his recovery athleticism it gives him such a high ceiling, but also he is like adapting to things like he's crack replacing on tight wheel six when they run to the strong side. So he's in a quarter. So he's thinking coverage first, but then he sees Nwosu get crackbacked, and then he fits in. He's like on a nub formation. He's fitting inside the B gap bubble and turning back a pulling guy on like a wind back toss. Like he's like doing stuff against the run, which we didn't really get to see him show in college too often. So he doesn't know what he doesn't know, but in a way that's
Right.
kind of a good thing because he's just going out there, he's making plays, he's playing. Jackson, I think I'm undecided on. Like there are a few throws where it didn't get thrown at him, but he's like straight up like underneath. He's given up a lot.
Yeah, right.
But
I
he's all
remember
right.
seeing that
Like
too.
he's all
Yeah,
right. Like
yeah. He's fine, right?
it was a big few weeks for him, really.
And I think they want Sydney back out there left corner. But Pete said he's the third guy at the moment.
You say that, but then yeah, he's the clear third guy according to Pete.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe Sydney doesn't. Maybe not. The time between the last time he played meaningfully. Maybe he's not the same guy. But anyway.
Maybe. So the other thing here is the offense.
Offense.
We have the offense to talk about. Why, Griffin, did they stall?
They stalled because they got outplayed everywhere.
Oof.
I mean, they got outplayed. I think Pete's trying to manifest a little bit. He was like, the protection's okay. The protection was actually pretty bad. Charles Cross did not have a good game. And like, you don't need to panic because he's going to be very good. Like, I have no doubt. He just needs to find his footing, and everything. He'll be fine. Abraham Lucas played okay. I mean, he played all right. The interior, if it wasn't Haynes, it was, Blythe. And if it wasn't Blythe, it was Gabe Jackson, I still have hope for the interior to be fine. Blythe didn't like lose bad. He was just getting bull rushed a little bit off of awkward angles. But so, all right. So they didn't scheme aggressively in the sense that, well, they didn't go deep very much. Within those play calls though, I think it's important to understand that Geno's process was aggressive within what was called. Like he had opportunities to turtle up and be more careful with the ball. But like he went for it in some context. So like the one dig route to Lockett really only had 10 players on the field. Like that's really good like that's the quarterback trying to get everything he can out of the look as possible. But
good example of that is that 3rd and a mile shot to Metcalf, which resulted in the interception, which came back for defensive pass interference, where he's looking at Lockett's sit route against cover 3, fully knowing that he ain't going to throw that. He's just reading the weak hook defender cover 3 who's come down to Lockett. And so he knows there's a window to throw the skinny post to Metcalf behind, which there was. Like, he could have just checked it down over the middle and then they punt. But no, he's like trying to push the ball down the field when the routes are down the field, which, Pete Carroll's comments, which we covered in yesterday's podcast. But, oh my God, this is disaster. Hold on. Next time I will actually charge my things. I'll be, but anyway, I'll just finish my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Peak House comments about letting Geno cook, almost like pushing the ball down the field, all of that stuff. Coolmore
So
routes downfield and he'll take them. He was near perfect from a process standpoint again, and just because the results weren't there from the overall offense, and we'll get to why that was. But like Geno as a quarterback was fine.
so
That in
yeah,
a second.
there are a lot of teams around the league that have like quarterback problems, and you kind of point to like, well, he missed a read here, he read it right, but then he wasn't operating quick enough. Where it's like, oh, this quarterback's having a meltdown, etc. Like Seattle doesn't have that problem at quarterback. Geno is like he rarely made. I don't think he made a single like bad decision. I don't think he misread a coverage once. Like he's operating really well. Like he was setting protections well, and like that's why Pete is saying what he's saying about him. Is because they have a quarterback that is like doing what the play call asks. And so in order to get going, you can't be having those negative plays that you had, like in the run game, like the tackles for loss, and the penalties were setting them back and putting themselves in really bad situations. And while I think Geno has average arm strength with above average accuracy, it's not an arm talent that you want to put behind the sticks, especially against that pass rush. That interception, for example, that's an example of him. The interception that wasn't called back. That's an example of him being able to access an explosive within the structure of a play that is not necessarily oriented around getting deep. And so like he moves off the front side of the concept. Goodwin ran the wrong route, by the way, as we came to learn from Pete. And had he not ran the wrong route, he would have ran something vertical, and the free safety, the deep safety, would have been nowhere near the play to make an interception. It just would have been a pass breakup. But then you see Geno transition, snap back to the backside of the play, knowing, and in reading the play, knowing he has a one-on-one because he knows that they're spinning to one high instead of showing two high pre-snap. So he knows he has Lockett one-on-one. That's in the back of his mind. He doesn't even have to see it. Then he looks to Lockett and he's targetable. And then he fires it and it's underthrown and intercepted. But the reason why it's underthrown is because his center is getting walked back, and his base is being disrupted, meaning he can't set his feet the way he wants to. Then on top of that, he also can't follow through 100%. It was like a 3/4 follow through. Geno has the arm strength and the accuracy to make that throw, no problem, but he doesn't have the arm strength to make that play when he can't fully get the ball off the way he'd like to. There are some quarterbacks in the league that can. Geno's not one of them. So the whole premise behind Geno is, with his decision making and with what arm talent he does have, he can make the offense, like we talked about last week. He can get you an above average offense if the play around him is average or better, right? So when the pass rush is as it was, he can't get the ball downfield. Now, that said, he was, I think, and this kind of further leans into Pete's point about why they have trust in Geno, is that he was under fire all game. I think he got hit like 6 or 7 times, and that was with getting the ball out. And that was with him avoiding more hits with pocket work, avoiding more sacks with pocket work. So, I mean, like of all like the kind of like the classic things you talk about quarterbacks, like he's checking off so many boxes. And that's why I think Pete continues to be confident in him. And they just have to open it up. So like, what does open it up really mean?
Yeah.
I think that means like more DK to the boundary, like just when they get single coverage, just throwing it. As for like designed shot plays, and they're under center and their pistol offense, and we'll talk about pistol, which they kind of use as under center, kind of use as shotgun, and kind of use as pure drop back, etc., and use as a run formation, right? They were running like that Yankee constraint, right? Like deep post with the cross, instead of a cross, it's like a deep whip, and Lockett returns back.
Yeah.
He hit Lockett on one of them, and then he had Lockett on another one, but then the protection, the auxiliary, the fullback didn't block it, Bloor didn't block it. So Geno scrambles and hits Lockett anyway on that deep one, which of course DJ Dallas throws an interception after, so then Geno can't get rhythm and everything. But so what they did call that was aggressive, for the most part, Geno executed.
Yeah, and it wasn't much, by the way. Like, that's not to say he wouldn't have executed more, but like there wasn't as much as there could have been. And then what hurts him in the second half, right? Drive 6 to start the second half. They go 3 and out, where they go 3 and out because Penny misses a block on Bosa, but also is sprint out away from Joey Bosa. So I don't know why they released the backside tight end to Bosa anyway, just keep him in and block Joey Bosa, double team him. But Penny misses the block, so Geno gets sacked because he doesn't have time to get it to the open locket. Then you're 2nd and 18, so you're checking down. Your 3rd and 11 is just short of the first down after the right read of the coverage. Like drive 7, you go 3 and out again. You go run, where your quarterback, like keeper on the quarterback bash, quarterback power, whatever you want to call it, Metcalf whiffs on his block. Like he should have made the block, he didn't. Then drive 8, this is start of the 4th quarter now. You're going nice Geno process, hitting Lockett on a passing play. Nice Geno process finding the check down after Gabe Jackson got beat around the edge by a wide 3 tech rush. Nice Geno process hitting Tyler Lockett for the first down against cover 4. Then you go run on the 1st and 10. Haynes loses front side, tackle for loss. You go you go 2nd and 12. So from that resulting tackle for loss, you go drive combination where I think Walker runs the route wrong. Geno also is pressured because Jackson lost again in the pocket, which saw Geno kind of put a bit too much heat on it. So then you're in 3rd and 12, and then they ran a game, which meant Geno got sacked, so he didn't have time to get it off. And then the game's done, right? Because you're already 20-0 down basically, and drive 9 is happening during a bad period. So really, like, it's just frustrating because it's like all these little things sort of added up, where there's like litany of execution errors around Geno, which just didn't allow him to play in, like, take advantage of the stuff they're giving him. But also, like, he showed that he's ready for more, and he just didn't quite get given it. But then he may have been given it if it had the opportunities. They did play a lot more cover 3 than I thought they did. But it was all off coverage. Like, it was only in passing situations really where they went more middle field open.
Right. So as part of what success they did have in the pure drop back game, it was for the most part going to Lockett and such, right? They need to get Noah Fant going, especially working the middle more, because Geno will throw that. And I just like his speed and size into the window, even if he's not like the best high pointer or maximizing his catch radius. I just think he needs to be involved. And I don't know, like, do they work more tighter split stuff, which is kind of what Diamond Pistol does for them. I just think they need to not scheme scare, and like a lot of these plays were stalled by them scheming scared and thinking they're going to execute, like with the quarterback option game, right? Like they did. That was getting a little too cute, and I thought maybe because they had that practice, because and like the Wildcat stuff, they practiced it this past week because they were expecting bad weather. But it's like, my thinking is, even if the design of the play is sound in a snapshot, my thinking is just give Geno a drop back, let him read out the play, and let him work, because that's what he does best, really.
Let him cook.
Let Geno cook, especially in the areas that he does do best in. So I just feel like it's Waldron not needing to hold back, and we're not even talking with the deep stuff. We're talking like the intermediate oriented stuff. So that's where I'm at with it. I really don't. The issues they had wasn't really sourced to Geno.
Yeah, the drive 7 as well. The reason that they had a 6-yard run, right, on 1st and 10, and then the next play they go into 2x2, right? And you've mentioned the play they had 10 people on the field, which is more ineptitude. They go in 12 personnel pair trips, shift to like a 2x2 ace look, and they leave Joey Bosa like literally unblocked into Travis Homer. I can't believe it wasn't a fumble, and I can't believe it wasn't for loss. So it's 2nd and 4 to 3rd and 4. But it's like, how are we leaving Bosa unblocked? I think Lucas thought he was running wide zone left, and it was actually wide zone right, and so Lucas went and helped. They triple teamed the defensive tackle and left Joey Bosa unblocked. It's like little things like that, like so many mistakes, like just blatant missed assignments around the offense. It's just it's frustrating, but it's also like reassuring in a way, because it's like there's no way that they play that bad again.
No,
How on earth? That's not going to happen now. And the fact that Geno stayed calm within all that and was still he didn't force the issue. He still read out things. I guess we should talk about his interception.
Well, we did a little bit. That was when you were freestyling on your desk.
I was knocking a glass of water over, I think. So actually,
oh, nice.
Yeah, it's all good though. Life's is fine.
I had mentioned how he kind of deduced pre-snap because he saw the nickel coming down. The nickel was capped. How it looked, they presented too high, and then they were spinning to one high. And his post-snap process reflected that he knew that without even seeing what Lockett was doing. He knew he had a one-on-one with him. And then I talked about the Blythe pressure or getting pressured from Blythe's rusher pressuring him. Well, and how he doesn't have the arm talent to overcome not being able to step into his throw the way he wants to. Etc.
But then Carroll says like how they had a missed assignment. Like if you look at the Geno pick play, if you go back, you can see it on the TV copy as well. Marquise Goodwin in the slot runs an out route right into DK Metcalf. Right. Now, if Goodwin runs up, he runs into the flat. If he just runs up slightly, even if it's on a hitch, he just commands the attention of the backside safety, Gibson, I think it was. And the backside safety, because his 2 is out, even though he's playing the cover 2 deep half, as soon as your 2 is out and you're kind of looking to 1, and Metcalf's already turned back, so he can just basically push to the other side of the field. Yeah, that if Goodwin runs the right route there, based on the coverage, then the pick doesn't happen because it's tipped and it just falls incomplete. And you're like, "Ooh, that was a close one." Should also say that Hufanga is an unbelievable looking player at the moment. He's really suited to how they play football. Like the way they blitz him and then play him in the quarters is really exciting for them.
And his run support is insane too.
Yeah, like wow.
What a player.
And they had a play where in the pistol full house formation, which I think does have a purpose for what we've said. This week against cover 3, it created nice one-on-ones for them against the zone. But also but they had a play where they just left Hufanga unblocked off a blitz off the edge.
Yeah.
Like, they just didn't even block it. No one blocked him because of the blocking scheme of the zone concept not working.
Was that on the boot, right?
No, that's a separate play. But again, like there's so many errors we can get into. So a bit more positive again watching the offense, because Geno's process, despite all of this, remained accurate and his poise remained.
And the reason why we're positive is because we assume that everyone around him is never going to have that bad of a game again, right?
Yes.
Or at least not all at the same time. So then if Geno's process and everything he's doing continues to project forward, then theoretically they should be scoring more points. And it's hard to not improve on scoring 0 offensive points anyway. But I mean, they're a team that any given week should be able to get into the 20 plus range. They have that in them. That doesn't mean they'll always do it, but that they have that in them. And I still think that soon enough, we could start to think of them as an above average offense. And I do. So my prediction for the season is that, well, I'll go average. My prediction for the season is that I think they have enough on the bone where they can be an average offense. And then that means they're going to have games better than average and games worse than average. But I don't think they may not have another disaster game in them. So that's how I feel about it. Just because when your quarterback is that consistent in decision making, that goes for so much. And that does not necessarily mean conservative. Like, again, I thought relative to what was schemed and called,
it wasn't.
He was aggressive within that.
He's pushing it downfield when the play and the opportunity allows itself. He's not.
Right.
It's the same thing we saw in the preseason.
And
He's still taking the chances which are there.
right. And granted, scheme generally flows from quarterback skill set. So yeah, you don't go deep with him like you do with Russell Wilson. Like you can't throw 50-yard fades and 50-yard posts with him.
Right.
But you can still call more than what Waldron did. And he will throw that, and he'll throw it within structure. Again, like I said earlier, where it's not necessarily the primary focus of the play. He'll progress to a deep shot that is there if the defense gives it to him.
Well, like when he found Tyler Lockett on the improvised route, where basically his play action, he gets Lockett's coming open. It's a 7-man protection. The protection messes up. Disley gets squeezed down and allows pressure before Geno can hit Lockett. So Geno rolls right calmly. Lockett's on the same page as him from an improvisation standpoint. Geno lofts the football very quickly to Lockett, quick enough that the defenders can't break on it, and is complete for a big play. That's the drive where I think they ended up doing the weird wildcat thing. Like other first half errors, because we haven't been through them, but like first and 10 wide zone, you call 21 personnel I formation against the bare front, and then you call weak wide zone. So you have a situation where you're running into a no bubble defense, which is just a disaster, and there's no space for it. So that's for a 1-yard loss. Then on the 2nd and 11, they try that RPO that they did against the Broncos middle field open, but Kenneth Walker goes the wrong way. Like, so then you're in 3rd and 12, and that's amazing. And then they can just sit back. Like 3rd and 12 against defenses ain't a winning formula. Even Seattle's defense, like, you're not going to win against a team in 3rd and 11. So like, and then even the 2-minute drill, like that they have at the end of the half, they have no timeouts, and they have like 1 minute 30 left. Like, you can't do that much when they're just going to sit off you, and you've got like not the best field position anyway. Like, it's just so annoying because, yeah, I don't know. So they had like one good drive in the game where they didn't have any errors, which ended with a pick. And then even the penalties, like the lineman downfield thing to negate the big Metcalf shot, like, man, that's an error. Like it's a mistake. So I don't know. They'll be all right.
So one last thing. So this diamond pistol stuff, where we're talking about diamond pistol.
Let's delve into that a bit more.
So pistol obviously being where the quarterback's in shotgun, but the running back is behind the quarterback, and then you've got two guys in the backfield flanking the quarterback. So really forming a triangle, but we call it diamond pistol because if you think about it, if the quarterback was under center, it would form a diamond. But then if you put him into the shotgun, now it's no longer a diamond, but they call it diamond pistol, so that to emphasize the quarterback's in pistol. Anyway, you guys get the picture, and I'm sure you guys did anyway before that. So what's cool about it is, again, this game they ran. You can run out of it, and so they're running out of it enough. Again, it's like a 50-50 split where the defense is treating you like it's essentially under center. So which means really they're playing one high. They're trying to be gapped out. So if they're running out of it, that means they can turn your back, play action out of it. And they hit a couple of, they had one, I think, play action concept hit off of this. Mm-hmm. And then also they're running just pure drop back out of it. And why that's important is because if they're treating it like it's under center, and they're aligning to you like they're expecting a run or play action pass, it influences the defensive personnel, and it influences individual defenders like thinking and keying. It's all about tendency. Then you get into pure drop back, you have an advantage because the pass rush isn't as juiced up. And the defenders are their alignments and their drops, they're thinking other things. So like they hit Tyler Lockett on the 14-yard curl route out of it. Geno did. So that means that like the concepts themselves are fairly vanilla, or they don't have to get more complicated than that.
And it's hard to make them more complicated when you only have two instant receivers out there.
That too. But it gives them an advantage from a tendency standpoint, because defenses, they want to chart you. They want to put what you do into buckets and categorize you so that can inform what they need to do. you're using that information against them if you can sell that you're trying to be an under center team when you're in pistol. And this is just one back pistol too. But then if you can also call your pure drop back, that gives you an advantage. You can be more efficient on average when you do just call a straight drop back with no play action out of it. So,
Yep.
you know, and then it also gives them options on second and short because you can run gap stuff and take advantage of the front. They just seem to block that better.
And it's cool how you can sometimes have running backs and a fullback there, and you can sometimes use the tight ends in it. But
right.
I feel like just because of the Walker 40 personnel Wildcat pistol, where Dallas threw the pick, like it's easy to then lump in the rest of this with it, but that's not the same deal. Like this,
when Geno's back there,
exactly. Like you have an actual guy who can throw. Anyway, so Falcons preview. And the Atlanta Falcons, or Falcons, as I say. Do I say Falcons? No, I say Falcons. I do. Are you a scallop guy or a scallop guy?
Scallop.
Yeah?
Yeah. How do you guys say shallots?
Oh, you won't like this. Shallot.
Okay, very interesting. Mm-hmm. So like people from, I think, certain parts of like the Northeast, especially on the coast, they say shallots and they say scallops, I think, or scallops.
Wow. So I'm a Boston guy.
Did you know there's a population in Boston?
Yeah.
And I think they were Tories that or loyalists. Sorry, that's not the word. They were loyalists during the Revolutionary War. And they you'll love this, Matty. They speak with English accents. Like there's a very small population.
No, they're not. Really?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. They're all very old.
I'm gonna check that out. Where they don't speak with English accents is Atlanta. I've been to the airport. It was fine. I had I can't remember the name. It was like an Atlanta fast food thing. It wasn't Chick-fil-A. It was like a burger restaurant. It was like a 3 out of 10 burger. So, but like they were very proud that it was from Atlanta, or the advertising was. Anyway, the Falcons, they are a bad defense based on the numbers so far, and a pretty good running attack, which is helped by Marcus Mariota. So if we start their offense, Kyle Pitts and then Drake London is just two crazy mismatches in terms of just height, weight, speed. And it's what I was saying with Ty yesterday is like, you might be tempted to ask Tariq Woolen to go shadow one of those guys, but then there's also the other one there. Now, Pitts hasn't been as productive in the first 2 weeks as some would expect, and it's getting a lot of attention, but they're trying to run him deep, so yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see out of them? Is the defense going to be okay? Like, it's a good test, really, after the 49ers game to right the wrongs of the run D.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good test for that, and it's also a good test of their if they want to play more too high, because they did start to play more one high, right, as the game went on against the Niners. It's a good test of their play action defense to be able to see how the safeties kneel down, because they're going to get a lot of especially intermediate middle play action, right? So it'll be a good test of that, be a good test of fundamentals from the defensive line to kind of man up, like Quandre Diggs said, just play better, right? But then also they're going to have the quarterback option game again. So we'll see what they feel compelled, how they feel compelled to match that.
Maybe we see Nickel Bear, like
hopefully.
Come on, like why wouldn't you do that? Is it because they thought Adams was required for that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then their defense, Dean Pease.
So on the flip side,
do you like peas?
I'll give it a chance.
You'll give them a chance.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, that sounds like you don't like peas. That's so messed up.
I'd say a pun. Do you guys know that Edward Gorey? I think it was Edward Gorey.
Do you guys? I like how you say that as though like I speak for all of Britain.
Speaking of the audience, there's an Edward Gorey, I think it's Edward Gorey, like cartoon or comic, where it's John Lennon as a kid, and his mom's like, "Come on, John, give peas a chance," and he's sitting there not wanting to eat his peas, green peas.
That's very good, isn't it?
That was where I was first exposed to that pun, because I know it's a very common pun.
Oh, I didn't know it was common. There's me being unoriginal again. And talking of unoriginal,
So they do end up playing a lot of one high. They play a lot of man. They send their man pressures and man blitzes and stuff. So there will be opportunities theoretically, one-on-ones downfield, to link up with Lockett on the deep cross and to link up with DK Metcalf down the sideline. Now they do disguise things. They do still play too high. They'll play too high pressures as well, right? So it's going to be a lot of like, I think they'll benefit by, well, I was going to say they'd benefit by slowing the game down and spend as much time pre-snap to undress it. So I think Geno's good at that. But at the same time, if they play hurry up, they might straight up take them out of some calls too, to where they simplify. So
Pete described them as multiple. I think some tempo wouldn't go amiss though, given what we've all been talking about. Excuse me. Cutting Geno loose and trusting him, believing in what we've actually seen.
Right.
Some tempo there's a time and a place for that, and it might be this Sunday. Again, the Seahawks are underdogs. Again, a lot of people are picking against them. They're not 10-point underdogs though. I think I saw it at 6.5, and that again at home that seems pretty strong. But we'll see. We didn't mention with the 49ers game how bad the officiating was. Now they're a perfect storm. Their officiating luck won't be as bad this game. Surely not. Like there's so much holding. There's a play which I tweeted out where there's 2 blocks in the back and a hold on Kobe Bryant. And I think also a lot of people were saying that Brooks was held. I didn't quite see that, but they were like, they were getting away with it, and then they kept doing it. Which why wouldn't you? Surely it won't be that bad. Anyway, I digress. That game's been and gone. We look forward to our next show where we will talk about the Atlanta Falcons game or Falcons game. Recap it live for you on my channel. So that'll probably be about, let's use some maths here, or math. Probably like 4 Pacific time, 4 p.m. So do please join us then. Thank you for everyone who joined us live right now. We appreciate you. We see your comments. Sorry we didn't get to any questions. There's a few good ones here, but we've been going over an hour and I've spilt water all over my desk and I'm starting to worry that it might have damaged some things, but hopefully not. Until next time, please do like the video if you're watching on YouTube and comment. That really helps us with the whole algorithm. And if you're listening to us, we appreciate you all the same. Please do subscribe to the podcast, follow it, share it among your friends. We're really trying to build some traction with this. Follow the podcast Twitter at Seattle Overload. If I just go here, you'll be able to see Griffin's which is at C Mike's Spin Move, the legendary running back, and my at Matty F Brown. Until the next Overload, thank you everyone for watching and joining us.
27-16 Seahawks.
Oh, yes, and a prediction. I agree with Griff. I match Griff. There we go.
Oh, okay. Wow.